there's something about human beings that as soon as we start hearing chanting, we cannot help but like if everyone starts chanting, do it, like it's really hard not to do it. Like you have to be a strong person to like not give in to that. Like you have to have like self-awareness and self-confidence. And if you are in any way shy or don't like the attention, you end up doing it. And so in these sorts of ways, if you say this and then everyone in your group says, you're stupid, blah, 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 you're far more likely to then just agree. And I mean, group polarization is also how we end up with cults. So like, what is a cult? Definition of a cult is what? C-U-L-T, not C-O-L-T, which is a horse.
A religion?
Yeah, so it's like a weird, like the line between religion and cult is tough.
I mean, an organized group of people.
Yeah, so the general idea of a cult is it's usually like a very fringe religious group with extreme views. And the reason that they're able to get off the ground is because what's the #1 rule of a cult?
Belief.
Belief, and also, but even more than that, you don't have to believe as much as you just have to, if you don't believe, you better not talk about it. But also what's like the #1 rule? Where do cults generally meet? Like where are there cults?
It's like a very remote location.
It's almost always a super remote location. And why? Because the rule #1 of a cult is you're not allowed to talk to anybody outside of the cult. That is the rule.
It's supposed to be secret.
Yeah, it's supposed to be secret
Just like
and
Fight
special.
Club.
Yeah,
Just
like Fight Club. The first and second rules of Fight Club.
First
So
rule of Fight Club is never talk about the Fight Club.
yes, which is you're breaking the rule right now. You're talking about Fight Club. So the cult, yes, that's the thing. And so what ends up happening is very often cults have like extreme views. So the most famous one was what's his name down in. I mean, there's a ton of them. I was thinking of.
Talking about what's Charles Manson?
Or his was a little bit his was a little. I was thinking about what was it? Jim Jones? Was that his name? The guy who the Kool-Aid guy. Do people know the expression "drink the Kool-Aid"? Like we're all on board with that.
Kool-Aid, but don't know what that is anymore.
So what does the expression "drink the Kool-Aid" mean? Like you say somebody's like, oh, they've drunk the Kool-Aid.
Oh, I don't know.
It's an expression used to say like they're on board with it or they are listening to it. So like if your grandma joins a new like group and all she now ever talks about is the importance of like, you know, meeting on Sundays and knitting together, you're like, oh God, she drunk the Kool-Aid. And the reason it's called this is because there was a guy who started a cult, and the idea was that everyone was going to die together by drinking poisoned Kool-Aid to go off to like magical heaven land. So the idea was they would all drink and they literally all got together, drank a bunch of Kool-Aid, and everybody died. That's a cult. And why was it able to get off the ground? Because the only other people who were talking were other members of, the only people you could talk to were other members of the cult, because they were the only ones who were in this weird cult complex down in South America with them. So everybody killed themselves. Very often they involve like spaceships, like there's always a belief that the aliens are going to come and save you. So these are the sorts of things.
And the people that tried to leave were like stuck.
Yeah, and if you try to leave a cult, they will like forcibly keep you there or even kill you for trying to leave. And so that is an extreme case of group polarization, where people in your social, like if you leave a cult, you literally have no connections in the world. Like that's got to be terrifying. Like imagine you have been, and very often what ends up happening in these cults and why it's so horrifying is there's very often a sexual harassment element or sexual exploitation element. So very often you hear about like the male cult leader who brainwashes everyone into thinking that like they should have sex with him. So it ends up with one guy and like basically his extended family of many gets off the group and stays because within the group that's acceptable and there's no interaction outside the group. So, and it's a peer pressure thing where if everyone else in the cult is saying you can't do that, then your options are either literally leave the cult, which might be physically dangerous, at the very least is emotionally crushing because literally every person you've ever met is now gone, or you have to just, you know, literally drink the Kool-Aid.
It's actually Seth MacFarlane, the guy who voiced as the Kool-Aid guy.
Oh, gotcha.
That's Seth MacFarlane.
What?
The Kool-Aid commercial man.
But we're talking about that?
Just in the sense that we were talking about Kool-Aid.
Yeah, but the guy.
It was Jim Jones. Yeah. Seth MacFarlane. To be clear, the guy who invented Family Guy is not a cult leader. Let's make that clear. All right. So yeah, this is what we're talking about. And now, where does it? Let's see if I can pull out the answer I'm looking for. All right. Name a system in which you have a large group of people coming together to make decisions. And to make these decisions, it's very hard to do if they won't talk to each other or don't have some agreed upon facts or fictions, or they're trying to, decide what's best for people as a whole, but they have very fundamental views on what counts. A government, and specifically one in which everyone's having a say. What do we call that one?
A demo.
A democracy.
Demo.
So, there's a tie-in here between these sorts of issues here and the internet and democracies. And what we're going to talk about after the break and continuing the next time is just, this is a word that gets thrown around all the time. It's a word that we in the United States are very fond of, for better and for worse. And what we're going to talk about is technology has fundamentally changed our relationship to a democracy and what it means to be in a democratic nation. And what we're going to talk about is just basically, what do we mean about democracy? Why do we like it? And then what is technology both good for democracy and bad? Because on the one hand, it is good for democracy, and on the other, there are a lot of ways in which things like this happen that are bad for democracy. So, go get a snack or whatever you need to do and come back at 12:35.